Welcome back to Jump Scare, where every story hides a nightmare. If you love original horror and creepy mysteries, stories that'll keep you looking over your shoulder, then you're in the right place. Before we begin, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new scare. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, grab a snack, and let's step into tonight's nightmare. There's a patch of land about an hour outside of Lawton that doesn't show up on most maps, but the locals know it. They just don't talk about it. A ranch-style house, gorgeous, owned by the same family since the day it was built. 90 years, same name on the deed, same silence around the property. People have gone missing out there. Not one, not two, but enough that the stories have names. The hunter that got hunted, the campers that walked out of existence. Step onto that 34 acres and sometimes you just don't come back. What no one knows is what the Gibsons promised the land and what lives in the woods to collect on it. The house, the Gibsons, the silence. The house sits on 34 acres of rolling land, an hour from the nearest real town. The house was built in the 1930s by a man named Shannon Gibson, who wanted something quiet, something permanent, and something that would stay in the family. Something that it did. For 90 years, the deed never changed. The Gibson's name passed down like a secret. The family that lived there never came around much, and when they did, they didn't speak to anyone in town. They paid in cash, they ordered supplies online, and kept the place in perfect condition. Even though, by all accounts, no one seemed to live there full-time. Neighbors noticed things, of course, like how the property stayed flawless, even through droughts, how the edges were trimmed at odd hours of the night, like invisible hands were working throughout the night, how every few years someone would wander onto that land, hunter, kid, surveyor with a GPS, and never come out the same, or at all, just gone. Like the earth opened up and swallowed them. The local sheriff stopped sending teams after the third disappearance. Some places, he told the reporter, off record of course, you don't even go looking for people. You just hope that they never went there to begin with. The last of the Gibsons in that area was an old man named Silas Gibson. He was in his late 80s when he finally collapsed in the driveway, clutching his chest, the front door wide open behind him. The house dark and still. He left no will, no instructions, just a single heir, his great-granddaughter Clara, who lived 3 hours away in a small flat above a bakery, working double shifts trying to forget about the stories she heard as a kid. Stories about the house, about the land, the way her family would go quiet whenever someone would mention Lawton. When the lawyer called, she didn't want to go, but the house was hers now. 34 acres, a mortgage-free life. If she could stomach spending a week there, sorting through old papers, deciding what stays, what goes, she drove up there on a Sunday with her husband Mark. The road narrowed, the trees closed in, and then all at once, the forest opened. And there it was. The ranch house looked like it had been frozen in time. Fresh paint, clean windows, a porch that didn't creak when they stepped on it. Inside, everything was neat. Too neat. Like no one had actually lived there, but somebody was maintaining it. That first night, they slept in the master bedroom, under the heavy quilts that smelt faintly of cedar and something else. Something wild, like wet fur and damp leaves. Clara woke up after 2, certain something was standing at the foot of the bed. But the room was empty, and the window was open, and on the glass from the outside a single handprint, too large to be human, too deliberate to be an animal. Over the next few days, Clara started to see patterns, the way the hedges were trimmed in long, sweeping arcs, like something had run through them. The way the grass in the backfield was flattened in a perfect circle, as if something had been kneeling there for hours, watching the house. Mark joked about the dog family, even though there was no dog, no leash, no bowl, No sign of a pet. Then the noises started. Not howls, not barks, something closer to speech, but wrong. Guttural, rhythmic, like a human, but clicks and growls. It came from the tree line at night. Always the same direction, always just beyond the edge of the yard. Clara found a box in the attic, old photo albums, letters, a ledger with dates and names, and beside one of them, a single word, offering. She didn't understand it, not yet. On the fourth night, she couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. She went to the window and looked out over the back field. Moonlight cut through the trees. In the light, she saw them. Shapes, tall, lean, moving on two legs, but not human. Their heads were elongated, their limbs too long, the fur patchy and matted. They moved like dogs that have somehow changed their body to walk upright. Their heads tilting, catching the light. Dogmen. But they didn't attack. They didn't even come close. They stood at the edge of the yard watching the house, as if waiting. One of them lifted its head for a moment. Clara could have sworn it nodded at her. Then they were gone. The next morning, Clara barely slept. Gray light filtered through the kitchen window as she carried the heavy ledger downstairs. It felt heavier than it had the night before, as if every secret trapped inside had gained weight overnight. She set it on the kitchen table. For several long seconds, she simply stared at it. Then she opened the cover. The first pages were ordinary enough. Crop yields, weather notes, livestock records, repairs to the old farmhouse. Normal, almost comforting. But the further she read, the stranger the entries became. The handwriting changed every few decades. Different ink, different styles, different generations of Gibsons. They each added to the same book. Each had known. One entry from 1912 read, "The woods accepted the offering. The fences will hold another season." Another dated 1936, "The children must never play beyond the western stones. They belong to us only while they remain inside the boundary." Clara frowned. She flipped another page. A newspaper clipping had been pressed between the pages. Local boy missing after hunting trip. She remembered hearing about stories like this growing up. Everyone blamed the mountains, or wild animals, or people simply getting lost. She kept reading. There were more clippings. Missing campers, missing hikers, even a couple who disappeared after taking pictures near the property line. No bodies, no clues, just gone. Her breathing slowed. The next page was covered with frantic writing. The land was hungry. Promised it would be fed. Those who trespass shall feed the pact. Her pulse thudded in her ears. No! She turned another page. They keep the house, we keep the boundary. Any who cross without blood become food. The room suddenly felt cold. She looked out the kitchen window towards the woods. The trees stood perfectly still, watching, waiting. She forced herself to continue. Each generation had signed their names beneath the entries. Each generation had renewed the agreement. Every Gibson, including Silas. Another page contained a hand-drawn map of the property. A thick red line circled the woods. At every corner, someone had written the same warning. Do not remove the stones. Another note was scribbled beneath it. These creatures do not belong to this land. The boundary keeps them here. Our promise keeps them calm. Clara's stomach twisted. They weren't protecting the family from the woods. The family had been protecting everyone else. She flipped faster now. The pages blurred beneath her fingers. More disappearances, more signatures, more bargains. Every missing person who had wandered too close. Every unexplained disappearance. Every story locals whispered around campfires. None of them have been accidents. The creatures hadn't hunted people. The Gibsons had simply allowed this to happen. Footsteps echoed behind her. Mark walked into the kitchen. rubbing sleep from his eyes. "You've been up a while," he said with a tired smile. Then he noticed her face. What happened? She couldn't speak. She slowly turned the ledger towards him, and he read in silence. His expression changed from confusion to disbelief to horror. Oh my God! Clara flipped through the very last page. Unlike the others, the handwriting shook violently. The ink had smeared in places as if the writer had trembled too much to finish. It was Silas. "My heart grows weak. The hospital says I cannot live here alone anymore. If I leave the property..." A long scratch across the page, then one final sentence. "The house will need new blood. God forgive us." Nothing else. No explanation. Only his signature. Silas Gibson. Dated 3 days before he died. Silas didn't inherit a farmhouse. He didn't inherit land. He had inherited a prison. And when he could no longer keep the promise, he passed it to her. The house wasn't a gift. It was a contract. And now it belonged to the last Gibson alive. Tonight, the darkness arrived earlier than usual. By sunset, the woods looked wrong. The shadows between the trees seemed deeper, thicker, almost liquid. The clicking started just after 9. 1 click, silence. 2 clicks, closer. 3 clicks, from somewhere behind the barn. Clara stood on the back porch, clutching the ledger against her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to go back inside. But instead, she stepped onto the porch. The wooden boards creaked beneath her feet. The air smelled damp, earthy, like fresh turned soil. The tree line stood less than 50 yards away, yet she couldn't see anything, but she knew they were there. Hundreds of unseen eyes staring through the darkness, waiting. The clicking stopped, and for a long time nothing moved. Then a shape detached itself from the shadows, tall, thin. Its limbs bent the wrong way as it stepped between the trees. The moonlight caught 2 pale eyes, their reflection like an animal's, except they never blinked. Another figure appeared, then another, then another. Dozens of them, perfectly still, watching, not advancing, not retreating, only waiting. Mark stepped onto the porch behind her. He froze. What? His voice whispered. He saw them too. He wrapped an arm around Clara without taking his eyes off the woods. "We leave," he whispered. "Tonight." She didn't answer. "We packed the truck." Still nothing. "We sell the place," his voice cracked. "We never come back." Clara slowly turned towards him. "If we leave," she whispered, "what happens to whoever buys it?" Silence. Neither of them needed to answer. A young couple? A family with children? Vacation renters? Someone looking for a peaceful home in the mountains? They would never know. Until the clicking started. The creature in the front took 1 step closer. Not threatening, not aggressive, almost patient. Its head tilted slightly, like it was listening, waiting for her. Clara looked down at the ledger. 1 match. That's all it would take. Burn the book, end the agreement, break nearly a century of promises. Maybe the creatures would disappear. Maybe they would finally be free. Or maybe the boundary would vanish, and whatever had been trapping them inside the woods would no longer be there. She imagined every nearby town, every hiking trail, every lonely farmhouse for miles. These creatures wouldn't need trespassers anymore. They could go wherever they wanted. The realization chilled her even more than the ledger ever had. The pact simply wasn't feeding monsters, it was containing them. Silas had known. Every Gibson had known. The family had protected their fortune. They had protected everyone else, but at a terrible cost. The lead creature lowered its head, not like a predator, but like someone awaiting a signature. Clara's hand trembled. Mark whispered, "Whatever you choose, we'll live with it." Could they? She slowly closed the ledger. The sound echoed across the silent yard. The instant the cover shut, every creature bowed its head. Not deeply, just enough, as though acknowledging the decision. Then one by one, they melted back into the darkness. No footsteps, no snapping branches, simply gone. The woods became silent, completely silent. No crickets, no wind, no owls, nothing. Clara stood there long after midnight, staring into the trees. She never saw another pair of eyes, but she knew they were still there, waiting, patient, because the contract hadn't ended. It simply had found its next keeper, and somewhere deep in the woods, something clicked. Once, twice, then smiled. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, make sure you like, subscribe to Jump Scare, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new nightmare. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done if you was Clara? Would you break the pact or become its next keeper? Sleep well. And remember, if you hear something clicking in the woods at night, don't go looking for it. It'll be in your next nightmare.